How are you? Good, Dan. Good. We've had the opportunity meeting, Nathan, planning board chair.
Nathan,
Yes,
I am Dan Barr of Melvin Homes.
nice to meet you.
Sure. Actually, we've had enough, so I think you're okay.
Yeah, I just wanna, since I wasn't here at the last planning board meeting, I wanted just to take a couple of minutes, have a conversation, ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
Just so that I get enough of the feedback so that we can have the discussion on Thursday.
Sure.
Alright. And we've got the rest of the board on screen so that they can kind of hear. It is being, recorded as part of the public meeting. But we'll talk about this one here. I have gone back, I've looked at kind of the application, the meeting previously, and just wanted to kind of ask you a couple of quick questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
Alright, so with subdivision and clustering, can you give me kind of your intended use of the subdivision and how you believe the definition of clustering applies to this one?
Sure. So I've used clustering in probably 4 or 5 applications in various towns over my career. And it's I wouldn't say every town applies it equally. It's a little bit vague as far as how each town applies it. So you look at each of the terms of clustering, you may get hung up. I view it simply as a tool, an opportunity for a town to take advantage of the regulation to give the developers a little relief in the layout of the community design. And it's a very valuable tool because it gives us relief on setbacks, lot sizes, any number of elements that you might be bound to in the zoning ordinance. And the goal is to show the town an alternative. One alternative is this is what we're entitled to do under the zoning ordinance. If you give us the relief and we use clustering as the means of getting the relief we want from the zoning ordinance, then we're going to show you a layout that we think is better for the developer and better for the town. Now, therein lies the hitch. What's the definition of better? Some might say, well, we think in order to use clustering, certain elements need to be met. I would argue that that's your decision. We believe that as long as the layout that we're showing is better for the developer and the town than the layout that we're entitled to by right, then that crosses the threshold of whether clustering is suitable. I'm not sure the history of the use of clustering in the town of DeWitt, so I can't speak to what parameters or what you felt needed to be accomplished in order to apply to use clustering in the past. Has it been used in DeWitt often?
It has previously, yes.
And perhaps
Often, I don't know that I can say often, but it has been.
we've used it in townhouse communities where we didn't want to build major rows of townhouses. The approval allowed buildings that were 6 or 10 units combined, and we wanted to go to doubles and triples. And in one town, we were required to have 40 feet between buildings, and we were able to reduce that to 20 feet between buildings. So we had more buildings, we gave up some density, but we didn't have to build 4 plexes, 6 plexes, 10 plexes, because we didn't want that many interior units. We used it in other cases where we were, in one town, the zoning was R10. We showed a layout of about 38 home sites. We clustered down to R7.5. So the town, instead of mandated that we use 70-foot wide lots, allowed us to use 56-foot wide lots. And the lots had to be at least 7,500 square feet instead of 10,000 square feet. In this case, I think what we're showing is a reasonable distance between buildings and 6 building layout as opposed to 1 building that would house any number of apartment units. And my client, JMG Inc. and JMG Custom Homes, hasn't decided how many units it wants to build. This is sort of the maximum number that it has in mind, 15 units, if they're in the townhouse configuration.
I assume that you had the opportunity to review town law, the New York State Town Law 278.
Not recently, but I've reviewed it a few times in the past. A little bit familiar with some of the case law that's come down.
How do you feel that this project exemplifies those decisions, or definitions?
Without the ordinance in front of me and without looking at some of the case law, I can't answer that question. I think what I'm proposing is something that is more desirable to your boards and your community than an apartment complex. I think,
Yeah, okay.
you might be hinging on the word beauty. I think it's in the eye of the beholder. This layout is more appealing, I assume, than I would propose than the apartment building. It's allowed by right.
And then kind of the follow-up to that one is, you know, reviewing our town code section on clustering.
Yeah, I have it in front of me.
But you've looked at it,
Yeah,
you've reviewed it,
yeah.
and, okay, so then to that same question, talking about this one, give me kind of your rundown, your thought process on how this applies to the town code regulation on clustering.
I guess I'm gonna ask you to be a little bit more specific. Is there a part of the code that you believe it doesn't apply?
Well, I mean, there's the preservation of open space, there's the benefit of the town. I think I'm looking at it in that aspect, so looking at the definitions that are in that code section. And so what I'm trying to get my head around is taking that code section, if I was to read that code section, I read it one way, you read it a different way. So I wanna understand your thought process and how
If you could put the code section up, I'd have a point of reference. I believe this layout preserves more open space than the apartment layout does.
Right, so I mean, that's what I'm trying to understand, is
The
if
other
you
benefit
take
to the
that,
town is I think that any number of your town residents that live south of this property would think that this is a more desirable use of the land than an apartment complex. So you asked what the benefit to the town would be. The benefit would be to give the neighboring residents a better alternative if they use the property.
okay,
Is there some type of benefit that I should be focusing on? A benefit that I'm missing?
well, I think, I'm looking down through kind of the definitions. We'll pull this up here. Probably hard to see on there. Scroll down just a little.
Yeah, the mouse is very choosy.
Dan, just so you know, Jamie lost her voice. That's why she's whispering.
We can look into
Yeah. She's usually not this bashful.
I hope you're okay. Be tough to practice law if it's permanent.
Yeah, I had it up.
If I stick my thumb drive in, I had it in there separated from the rest of your code. I saved it as PDF.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was this one?
Yep, that's it. There you go.
So I think really it's, if you go back to the top, you know, the paragraph there where it starts pursuant to town law 278, the last sentence, the purpose of the section is kind of, you know, where I'd start, you know, looking at it in terms of adequate economic preservation of streets, utilities, and preserve natural and scenic quality of open lands. Right now, it's an open field, right?
Right now, it's an open field with a zoning classification that allows the use of apartments.
No, I understood all that, so I think,
I was
I think
told
what I'm,
that apartments are a non-starter. I don't know why.
well, we can discuss that, but I think what we're talking about here now is your application for clustering.
Sure. I think you're going down this road that you're using it, this language is an obstacle, and
No, I'm looking at it as,
as opposed
you
to
know,
an opportunity.
our purpose, you know, and our charge is to look out for, you know, reasonable and structured development of our town. And what I'm trying to look at here is how building a road, adding townhouses, adding utilities, eliminating, or not eliminating, not creating what I believe to be the preservation of natural, you know, scenic open lands as part of this development is falling within the definition of clustering. That's why I'm asking this question. I wanna
I'm sure there's
understand.
an awful lot of case law out there that
I'm not a lawyer.
challenges that. My point is, it's a very low threshold. All you're really doing is saying, this is the alternative without the use of clustering. This is the alternative the developer would prefer to use with the use of clustering. And you have to decide, do you want to use this language as some type of tool? I don't think it's the type of thing that's going to be challenged by somebody. Nobody's going to come back to the town and say you couldn't do that, you violated the code. And I think that would be it's a legislative act. It's not the kind of thing that's going to be defeated in court if you make that decision. If you choose not to make that decision, then my client's left with either request for a variance to allow multiple buildings on the property, or a request for a zone change, or to sell the property as is. My client's not an apartment builder, and so my client's looking for what his company, their company, can do with the property. And felt that this was a more elegant way to get to what my client wants to build, as opposed to a request for a zone change or a request for a variance. I want to make it very clear, your town coming back to the idea of apartments. It's a very, very valuable piece of property that's used for apartments. And unlike some towns that limit the number of units you can have on a parcel by the size of the parcel, they take the square footage and divide it by, your town doesn't do that. It would really be limited by the height of the structure that my client would build or somebody would build. And your height limitation has to do with the distance from the property line. So I think maybe as many as 4 or 5 stories could be accomplished if we look at your code. So there could be 50, 60 units on this property. And we would have to comply, the user would have to comply with the ordinance requirement of only 1 building. So it'd be 60 units in that range. And then you have to look at the definition of accessory structures to see if garages could be built or not, or if that doesn't comply with the zoning requirement of only 1 building. So you either have units with parking or units without.
Okay. And then, so I guess in this whole process, what I'll kind of, the last question I wanna get, I'm an architect, so I need to visualize some of this stuff. Is how you believe the project satisfies those requirements to the benefit of the town.
I think it's more appealing, and more, better use of the property, preserves more green space than the apartment complex layout. Maybe I'd like to turn that around, and maybe you haven't decided yet. Why do you believe it does not?
I wanna have that discussion with my board here. I'm just trying to gather information at this point. I'm not gonna respond and.
I'm a little confused with the procedure. So the way I understood your code, the use of the procedure is we submitted a letter application to the planning board to request consideration or use of clustering. That would then go to the town board. The town would say, we think the use of clustering may or may not be appropriate, but we're okay with the planning board considering it. Go back to the planning board, and then we would manipulate or change the layout if you think that's necessary to apply clustering.
Yeah, I think it does, I think your thought process is correct.
and it starts with our board, if we make that recommendation to the town board. That's why I'm trying to gather as much information now so that we can have a discussion and talk about
And
this,
I'm
and
not-
make that recommendation, and it's gonna be up to this board whether that goes to the town board or not.
See, I think that you can send it to the town board, with the proposition that we'll consider the applicant's use of clustering, but we're not ready to grant approval yet. The town board can send it back to you and say, yeah, we're okay with the use of clustering, but now we begin perhaps negotiating how we would lay out buildings and how we would lay out the road on the property. And that's where we get the final approval. And we just don't wanna start throwing darts against the wall and not knowing whether we're hitting or not. There's any number of different
I don't think
items.
anybody wants to string you along, so I think we need to gather this information, have our discussion, and make a recommendation. And that recommendation is either gonna be that we send it to the town board, or we don't feel it's appropriate for clustering, which is why I'm trying to gather all of this data.
I think that there's some room to work through the site layout. So you said earlier, well, right now it's green space and that's ultimately the ultimate preservation. So I hope nobody's proposing that nothing's done to the property.
No, I don't think that's what we're saying.
Okay, so, you know, if we get back to this board after having gone to the town board and coming back, then we would like some feedback on what you think needs to be done. Is it attached units that are a concern? Is it the proximity of the units to one another? We showed a public road because we felt that that was in the best interest of the town. I got the impression that there were some private road developments that were troublesome in the past in the town. But a private road gives us a little bit more flexibility on the shape of the road. You know, with a public road, we have to take into consideration how a plow would get in and out of there and turn around.
Okay.
There's a possibility of, if there's a lot of flexibility on the distance between buildings and setbacks, to perhaps go to detached units or a mix of detached, single units and attached units, sort of mixing them up.
Okay, I mean, I think I asked my questions. So, appreciate it. Sorry. I don't believe so. Okay. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Dan, you will be on the agenda for this Thursday night?
My client has been out of town, won't be back until the end of the week, so we're not gonna make it this time, so it'll be hopefully the next meeting.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome, morning.
Morning.
Jason Brown, I'm just here to represent RHF High Tech, answer any questions you guys may have.
Right, so this was I think you had a new layout to present that we wanted to talk about.
I think they had a little bit of a work session last week and came up with a new parking layout with additional parking. But previous to that, I mean, we would prefer just to keep the layout the way it was. We're not interested in more parking unless the town is interested in that. So
So that's
So
the,
this is,
that's the new plan, correct?
right,
so up on the top left where it used to be reserved parking, where it currently is reserved parking, they would make that proposed parking. And then kind of down on the bottom right, and that little part that jumps out, that would be new reserved parking.
my understanding that's got a fairly steep grade to it.
Actually, it's flat up on top, you can build the parking and then you'd have to have, they would walk down, you wouldn't drive down. It could be,
It's all the parking lot requirements of slopes and grades.
yeah, you could meet all the grading requirements. We've actually graded that out before, we had an entrance in there one time. So, we could, I mean, back when we were doing phase one, we actually put an entrance road right down through there at one point in time, so.
It was a construction entrance, wasn't it?
We had a construction entrance, but we, in one of the preliminary designs, we actually were gonna bring access in that way. We just never, we ended up using the other entrance. So,
There's new parking at the top, it sounds like they have already graded that in the past to bring it to an elevation out of the floodplain now.
Okay.
Where the current reserve parking is, that they would propose real parking.
I mean, they can park it. So, but Doug, you touched on this previously along kind of that, like the edge there, the town has done work, created green space there. Does this layout impact any of that work?
My understanding with the discussion we had last week is no, it does not.
It does not. So where does that put the parking count?
So now they're meeting with this plan. They're showing 25% reserved,
Which is the stuff over there.
yeah, and then 75%.
I got you on speaker.
Right, what's that?
I said I got you on speaker. This is just Greg, in case you guys have any questions. We didn't get a Zoom link, so it's Greg from my office.
Okay,
In case you guys have any additional questions.
okay.
You can have the Zoom link, it's right in the agenda if you want to.
Oh, they said the Zoom link is in the agenda, Greg.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, I get to it.
Alright, I'll just keep my phone.
That's fine.
Yeah, no questions.
Alright, so with the proposed reserve parking, the proposed parking, the existing parking, we now meet the requirements. The reserve parking, at 25%, we have to still have to recommend to BZA on the 25% at this point, right? Industrial here.
High town.
Oh, the side tax.
Yeah, let me just put you on the table.
We have
Talk
to change that.
quiet.
So,
I just throw this on the table so you can hear it, guys.
Yeah, that's fine. So we'll need to make that recommendation for the reduction of that reserve. I don't think we have a problem with holding that reserve. There's no intended development, like you guys don't have a master plan or future development plans for the whole spur of land, right?
No,
Well, it sounds like, what were they saying? Hey Greg, it's Alana. Hi, what were you saying, you know that where you're showing the reserve parking now, you guys were thinking in the future possibly some sort, was it a storage building? I can't remember exactly what you said.
I think at this point in time, I would say that's off the table.
That's off the table now?
Well, if we're gonna put reserve parking up there, then, obviously keep the, building there.
And their hope is,
That was one of the reasons I wanted the reserve parking located, over where the retention basin, my retention basin is. Well, not that it's ever gonna go in, but if it ever did go in, at least it's in the proximity of the employee entrance.
they are trying to acquire a couple of additional parcels there, like on the right side. And they are hoping that if the town does, you know, change the parking regs at some point, that they could come back and then, you know, put in for less parking, but right now they are showing that they need to cover.
I mean,
So
right
the
now,
bank,
yeah,
the bank parking spaces, the 104 spaces, that looks like that's a new area from the previous submission. Is that true? Because I think
Yeah.
I thought that was a very steep retaining wall separation from the main site.
the one on the right-hand side.
Yeah,
That's what I was asking before. I don't think they would need, well, I can't say I don't think. They don't believe that they would need any sort of retaining wall, that they can grade it and park on that area if needed.
is that just a footpath then I'm looking at?
Space there first to bring the slope down, that's why we put it up for the
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, do you wanna, Jamie's asking just to summarize what they're asking for and what they have.
Well, they're asking for these proposed additions. The issue was parking. They don't think they need any additional parking. Right now, they're not using all of their existing parking, and they say a lot of the space in their building is for those huge tanks, less for people. They don't think they need any additional parking at all. But, you know, it was like a 50% parking variance, so we met with them to try to, you know, get things back into compliance, since the ZBA normally doesn't approve variances that large for parking. So this is the plan that they're showing us now. The only thing that's really changed is the parking, so that they can meet code. Adding the reserve parking that currently exists up on like the top left of the plan, that would become real parking, and then we were just talking about where that new lot would be with potentially for reserve parking in the future.
So under the previous application, previous approvals, the proposed parking in the upper left was the quote unquote reserve parking.
Yes,
So we're gonna now build that in order to satisfy the 75% requirement for parking and then move the reserve parking to the east
yes.
into that area and call that reserve and hold that in reserve until it is ever needed.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so that pulls the parking into compliance. I think the other thing that we need to show in there is the RPZ.
Doug, do you wanna talk about that real quick?
Yeah, the RPZ is, we've already had that designed and approved and everything. I don't know what happened with it not being installed. It was during COVID. But, that's gonna be installed, you know, in a short order. We're gonna pull the drawings out and get Land Court put it in.
Yeah, so we want that on the drawing too,
Already
Greg.
old site plan anyways.
Yeah,
So we want that shown on the drawing. Jason,
Sure.
Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Yeah, okay, this is a schematic plan. It's not fully detailed, so we can put it on there.
Yeah, there's already an approved plan for it somewhere else, but we'll just add it to this plan, no big deal.
I think we did see the plan once before.
Yeah, I think it.
Is that DOH approval that we'd have?
Yeah, it was fully
Should be
approved.
fine.
Yep. It's going right near that cul-de-sac, somewhere in that area.
Yep.
Basically at the town line.
okay. I think those are the questions that we had. Are there any questions for the rest of the board?
I just
No.
want to make sure I understood the phase 2 111 spaces. So that is still planned to be in reserve as part of the project moving forward? Because I think we talked about it last time. It was encroaching, you know, onto Lake Creek, and there was a desire not to do that. And I'm actually in favor of not doing that either. So where did it land currently? I missed some of that, sorry.
Currently, that would be regular parking, not reserve parking in this new proposal. The applicant says that that land was already graded in the past and that it's above floodplain elevation now. The hope is that the town is trying to work on some parking regs and reduce some of the required parking or give some more freedom to approve more reserve parking, hopefully in the not too distant future. So I think this applicant's hope is that, you know, if before this is all built out, if there are changes to the code and they can come back and reapply, you know, not to build all of this parking because they don't think they need it.
Hey Greg, would you mind just muting your phone unless you wanna talk? There's just a lot of background noise coming through. Thanks. So the proposed parking in the upper left is proposed to be built out. Right now it's being held in reserve. It's proposed to be built out. It's not gonna impact any of the work that the town has done along Lake Creek, according to previous conversations. So can be built out, won't impact any of the work that the town has done or any of that kind of greenway along Lake Creek. And the reserve parking, what they're gonna hold in reserve, the 25% is what they're gonna move to the east into that little spur of land. So the parking lot to the north of the building will be completely built out as shown.
Not exactly, part of that will not need to be built out, there's I don't know what it is, Jason.
I can point it out.
12, 13, 14 spaces
It's hard
there,
to see on the screen.
that will need to be built out,
So-
to build out the reserve.
This portion of it right here, that if you zoom in, see that portion that's got lines in it? That will not be built to allow us to not encroach into the floodplain. This portion of it will be built. And then this portion of it will be built.
Yeah, can you give us a new drawing showing that?
I mean, it shows that it's on there, it's just, it's hard to see on the screen. I can pull up the plan.
I think if you could take it off, Jason, just so it's
Are you,
clear.
are you saying it's gonna be held in reserve or just off?
Yeah, this is actually included with the reserve. It'll be just in reserve.
Yeah, so we need a clear drawing that shows
Yeah.
what the proposed drawing or what the proposed spaces are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And take off those reserve. And I would have a separate drawing that shows everything built out.
So you wanna see a plan that's just the existing and what's proposed to be built. And then you wanna have a separate like parking plan that shows the breakdown of everything?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
We
we need
can
to
do that. We've done-
clearly identify what we're showing as reserve.
Yep.
Versus what is actually being built.
So, just so everybody knows,
The reserve parking.
this is Dave Pollock. Dave just joined the meeting.
Okay.
Dave is the COO, Elmware. Right. Good morning.
Morning.
He's been very helpful.
So Greg was just saying that needs to be shown on the approved site plan.
Reserve.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the full build out plan. I mean, what's shown there, it's just hard to, I think I even, when I was looking at this, thought everything in the light gray was being built as part of the phase 2 proposed.
Okay, so you just need to more clearly define
We
like
need to
halves
clear,
or something
yeah,
like that.
put a chart on the right hand side which shows, you know,
Yep.
how much is, you know.
There is a chart on there and all that, but.
Yeah,
well,
it just needs to be clear on
Yep.
there so that, because right now I thought, even with that retaining wall in there, I was reading it as everything in that light gray is being built.
Yeah, I think it was confusing previously too, I think previously we did a separate parking plan, kind of break it down for you guys to show you. But we'll just do a different color hatch or something like that to make it clear.
Let's see. Have you made an application to ZBA?
Yes.
So we would need to make a recommendation. I don't know, do you know if it's on this?
Was the application for CBA just for reserve parking or, because I think that was made.
It was made,
Yeah, I don't think we need to go to ZBA anymore.
yeah,
Oh, we'll still, yeah, even for the reserve to go down to 25%, we still need to make that recommendation. This board doesn't have the authority to do that right now. So we still need to make that reservation or that recommendation for the 25%.
Do you wanna send in a new application, just reserve, like showing the new proposal, cause your old one probably had a big parking variance, right?
Yeah, the old one did. I thought the planning board had the authorization to do a 25% variance.
No, not yet. We're pushing for that authority, but we don't have it.
Alright, we'll modify the plan and then the application to ZBA.
Yeah, I mean, I think, are there any other questions from the board?
My only other comment was on that phase 2 top left parking where we have the other hatch that says we're not gonna build that. We complete the drive loop on the top of that, but at the bottom, is it a one-way drive in, just a single load, the right-hand side for now? Or should those last couple of spaces come out and we just keep it as a loop through and not the final connection on the bottom left? We're hatching out the parking spaces, but not the drive lane, and the drive lane becomes a dead end.
Yeah. Do you see what he's asking?
yeah, but I mean, if you take those out, then you'll lose, if you take the access out, then you'll lose, he's asking about right here. And I think.
Yeah,
we-
it's a one-way in to get to a couple spots versus, is there another way of doing that without,
Well, I mean, if you put those couple in reserve right there.
You'd have to reserve these as well.
Well, that's what I'm saying, if you put those in reserve, the ones that, the 8 spots that are right there on the right-hand side of that drive aisle, can you build out on the right side of the existing parking where you're calling for reserve? Oh, wait, no,
Yeah, I mean,
no, I thought, so this is the clarity issue. Didn't you say the light gray all the way on the right-hand side is reserve?
no,
That's being built.
No, it's being built, it
Okay.
doesn't have the hatch on it, yeah.
Yeah, there's another clarity issue.
Yeah, it's just you run out of colors when you got so much
On the
different.
old plan, that was all reserved
Okay.
parking, but now that's what's becoming
Yeah,
real parking, except that
If we add those 8 spots into the reserve, does that make it greater than 25%?
yes,
It does.
yeah, we're right at 25%.
We're right at 25.
Prior variance was 25%.
like the existing variance or what they were proposing for existing.
Jason probably knows, you go off the top of your head what the existing was.
The existing was 205, and then, if you zoom down to the bottom of the plan, it tells you.
I thought it would be etched in your mind by now.
Nah,
Jamie's asking Jason.
Yeah.
Jamie lost
It
her
is
voice.
no voice.
Yeah. She's not whispering.
so existing required 402 spots, we built 205. And, or not 402, 273. We built 205 and we reserved 68, which was the 25%. So it was a smaller reserved area, so. I can pull out a parking plan if you wanna see.
No, I mean, I see it, reserve parking
Yeah,
percentage 25 previously approved.
yeah, so the
So
park,
basically what you're looking at is, you had X and you had the 25% reserve that's already been approved. Now you've got Y
right,
and you're asking for the same 25%.
Right. Yeah.
So in general, it's just taking that, what was required and doing the same thing again.
If they're staying
Exactly.
25%, cause it runs from the land. So we're trying to figure out whether or not this variance, if there's no adjustment, if it's still 25%, because it runs with the land. If that doesn't, then they wouldn't have to go back to ZBA, as long as we can stay at that 25%. So we're still meeting the intent of the variance of 25% of the required parking is in reserve, which they can still show, that we just need an updated drawing. So, Leif, to your question, I guess what we're discussing right now is the parking being 25% reserved doesn't change the previously existing variance on parking on the site at 25%. We just increase the parking and we still hold 25% in there. So to do that, we would need to build those 8 spots that are in there, so you
Somewhere else, yeah.
you know, in the drawing, you're probably gonna need a little hammerhead or something, you know, build a little bit of that loop part in order
We
to
did.
allow somebody to,
we did. There's like a 5 or 10 foot space
Oh, there
there
is?
before they go back out, yeah.
so that's accounted for. I mean, I think it's just gonna be the way it is, a little one way in, one way out,
Okay, I just,
drive aisle.
And you
Yeah.
still have access to that
And it-
east too.
Yeah, and Dave is here and he can, you know, if anybody has any questions on how they operate, I think Dave is pretty well versed in that.
Well, I know how to build tanks.
But no, your parking lot, you would
The
know.
parking lot, I can count what I did for those who, who weren't here Friday. We have 92 open parking spots today. We're moving our town line road facility over, which will take up 24 spots. So I know the rules and regulations require X, but we're basically at 74. We have 74, 78 excess parking spots right now. And with that, even though if we need to bank them or build, we have property due east heading towards Old Thompson Road, that's an open area, not close to any wetlands or anything, that we could facilitate that also for parking. And we're also looking at buying a building over there that would have parking also. This parcel works at my parents. Right here.
Yep.
And we're looking at, if we have to, we're looking at buying a couple pieces of property up here too.
Okay.
Honestly, there's, if
I
you
was
look at,
excited until I heard
if you look at the
commercial
latest,
foreclosure rate is
look at the latest aerial,
107%.
if you look at the latest aerial maps, it's a really good representation of what they use. It's like a middle of the day shot, you can see work going on there, and half the parking lot's empty.
Well, I mean, I think we acknowledge all of that, I mean, I think the parking regs are at top of conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but,
thank you for at least exploring that.
yeah, but I mean, but we have to operate within the confines that we have right now, so. So I think with that, if you can work with Jamie on numbers
Yeah, we'll try to
and
dig up the
previous
old variance.
variances and all of that, then I think we can entertain looking at the 25% reduction here. Like Doug was saying, the RPZ needs to be on the drawings, so we'll need an updated set of drawings which calls that out.
Yeah, we'll update and get it right back to you.
And the one other issue is the throughway, the new wall that's
Mhm.
where this moving down, if there's any lighting or anything, if you could show us a letter from Thruway Authority or just something saying that they're good with that.
Yeah, we've been waiting to submit something to them because they just wanna see a site plan and their concerns were, I can send an email what their concerns were. They're concerned with lighting and stormwater and no stormwater drains onto the site. The lighting, obviously, we would make it so there's no spillover property line, so that would be impacted. The things that they're asking for, we're all gonna be in compliance for with the town. We will get authorization from them, but we can't do that until we have a formal plan set up, which it sounds like now we're pretty close.
Yeah, so whenever you
Yeah.
get,
Yep.
you know, feedback.
And then obviously the sign, there's a sign permit too, that has to be updated. The sign.
That would be part of the site plan. So if you could put that on the plan too and let us know.
The building sign, it's on the building, so it's on the old face of the building, it's just coming out.
Okay, so you are just moving
Same
that
side.
whole-
Yep, same
Yeah.
sign, it's almost in the same exact location, it's a
Yeah.
little bit.
So you're
We
taking,
have
you're
a
taking
plan.
all the same architectural language and everything that's on that building.
It's the same sign.
It's going to be the same sign, everything is
Pick it up and bring it back.
one, we're gonna pick it up, move it, and the lighting is going to be identical to what we have now.
Right.
Which is just strong step inside of the building. Frames the building, it doesn't light up anything.
Actually, if you'd like, when I drop off the new site plan, we have a rendering of the building,
Yes, please.
and we'll drop that off, and we also have some exterior information and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, we'll need all of that.
Well.
I think in order for us to review and approve all of this, we need a complete updated package.
Sure.
Yep, we'll re-update everything and drop you off a new package, try to get it to you today.
Yeah, no, that would be good, so that we have a clean.
Yep.
Package that we can review and get.
Yeah, if you guys wanna review it, I have a rendering with me, just, there you go. I thought we did. Yeah, it might have been.
I apologize, I thought the meeting was at 8:30, I tried not to be late.
Yeah, the building.
It was at 8:30, but we're moving quick.
Okay.
Running early.
Well, it's government, you
I
know.
know, we never run early, so you're as shocked as I am.
Yeah, I pride myself in being on time, I go and I go,
Jason, is that what you had?
So I don't know if you guys have this one or not. This is just a quick graph, this is a rendering map, yeah, shows it all. It shows it in the existing condition. You can see there's the sign, the sign is just small. Yes.
no, it's, I'll go to the old budget, but it doesn't shoot.
Yeah.
And we'll.
No, but I mean, even on the previous, like if this was a labor that we enjoyed working through the process with.
Oh, yes, it's
so-
great,
Like I said, we have the exterior building materials package too, but it's the
It'll be
same,
the same, right?
same exact stuff, so. But yeah, well, I'll include that in the package.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, I thought they sent it in to you guys, but maybe they didn't. So, that
Okay.
one, there was a couple other building elevations I think you guys did get.
Okay, yeah, just put it all into, one package that we can look,
Yep.
we can go through Lana's office. Alright, any other questions from the board? You guys have clear direction?
Yep.
Good. Alright,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Sorry for being on time.
If the board could just hold on 1 second.
You guys wanna keep that plan?
We don't need to if
We
you're
can take- I'll take that, I'll
thinking
just-
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be easier.
I think my phone was really good, but it wasn't.
Just-
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Good
Alright,
seeing you,
so
Jason.
Good seeing you.
at this point, we'll end the public meeting, so we can stop the recording, thank you, but let's hold on to the board for 1 second.